Okay, so have you ever found yourself kind of like, you know, pasting on a smile when inside you just want to, well, make a completely different
Oh,
expression?
tell me about it.
Right.
It's like we're all in a giant social minefield sometimes.
It really is. Today, we're going deep on something that's almost an art form,
Yeah.
hidden conflict
Because it's everywhere, right?
everywhere. And we've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
So, to help us unpack this whole thing, we've got this really interesting episode of the Human Condition podcast we're going to dig into. They had a psychologist on, and get this, a conflict resolution expert.
Oh, wow. A 2-for-1 special.
Exactly. And you know what they said? They said workplaces are practically designed for hidden conflict to just thrive.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, the structure of a lot of workplaces, it's like a recipe for that, isn't it?
It is.
You've got competition for promotions, never enough resources to go around, and that constant pressure, to be professional. No wonder things can get a little tense,
Yeah.
even if it's all happening behind the scenes,
Right. And sometimes, let's be real, calling someone out directly, that could backfire big time.
especially in the workplace.
Whoa, yeah, especially if you want to keep your job.
Exactly. So what do? You need a game plan for all this,
Uh-huh.
right? You've got to protect yourself, choose your battles. It's not about pretending you don't have feelings. It's about expressing them strategically.
It's like you have to become a master strategist in your own life.
Yes.
Okay, so speaking of strategy, the first tactic they talked about really clicked with me. They called it fogging, and it's basically like creating a verbal smoke screen. Poof, you disappear.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It's like you're acknowledging what they're saying without actually agreeing or disagreeing. You're kind of sidestepping their attempt to get you all riled up.
It's like they use that example where, let's say, a coworker makes some kind of snarky comment, like, wow, seems like you're really struggling with that project. Instead of getting defensive, you could just say something like, yeah, it definitely has its challenges, or you might be right. It's subtle, but it's powerful.
Right. Because you're not giving them anything to work with. You're staying calm, and psychologically that can be really disarming because you're not feeding the fire.
You're basically like refusing to play their game.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, so fogging, that's great for deflecting, disengaging. But what about those times when you do need to stand your ground? That's where I'm guessing tactic number 2 comes in.
You got it. And this one's a classic. Like, there's a reason this one's stuck around. They called it the broken record.
Okay.
And it's all about just calmly, politely repeating your point or your request, no matter what the other person is saying.
Okay, so like even if they try to guilt trip you or like change the subject, just like completely wear you down.
Yeah, it's like you're setting a boundary, right? But like with the sonic force of 1,000 broken records all playing the same groove,
I love that visual.
it just keeps going. They try to change the tune, and you're just like, nope, this is the beat.
Okay, but why does that work? Like what's the psychology behind that?
Well, I think that unwavering repetition, it sends a message, right? It's like, I'm not budging. This is where I stand. I'm not going to be swayed.
You're like that rock that everyone wants to build their house on.
Yes.
Like no matter what kind of pressure's coming at you from the outside world, you're solid.
Exactly. It can be so powerful, especially if you're dealing with someone who's trying to use intimidation tactics. You're just like, nope, this is my boundary.
Not happening. So good. Okay, we've got these amazing tactics for like those moments when you're, face to face with this hidden conflict. But what about the emotional toll that this takes? Because let's be real, it's exhausting.
It is. You're holding so much in.
It's like a workout for your soul, this whole like smile on their face thing.
Exactly. And that's why they talked about self-care. Like, in these situations, it's not just about, treat yourself. It's about intentionally and strategically managing your well-being so that you can be your best self, even when you're in the middle of all of that.
So you're saying like it's less about pampering, more about powering up. It's like you're a superhero charging your, energy source or whatever.
Because if you're depleted, if you are running on fumes, you are so much more likely to just react emotionally instead of actually being strategic in your response. And when you're taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, you're giving yourself the fuel that you need to get through it.
So you're more likely to actually use those tools that we've been talking about, like fogging and the broken record. Because let's be honest, it's hard to be calm and collected when you are running on fumes.
Right. And one thing they said that I thought was so interesting is that it's so important to have a support system outside of all of this. Like, you need your people, whether it's friends, family, a therapist, whoever, who you can talk to about what you're going through.
Oh my gosh, yes. 100%. Sometimes you just need to vent, Like
Yes.
let off some steam.
Because otherwise you just explode.
You're holding it. It's like that pressure cooker that we were talking about before. Something's got to give.
Exactly. And that's what your friends and family are for. They could be that safe space where you could just, be yourself. Let your guard down.
It's like hitting the reset button
Yes.
on your soul.
Yes.
Okay, but what about those other forms of self-care? Like, I'm thinking, going for a walk, hitting the gym, or finally signing up for that pottery class that you've always wanted to take. Those are helpful too, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, they talked about those things as being so crucial to managing that stress, the emotional drain of it all. Anything that brings you joy, that helps you de-stress, allows you to tap into some sense of peace and calm. It's like, hitting the reset button. And then you can handle whatever comes your way.
It's like they say, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
And sometimes filling your cup means like just taking time for yourself to do something that you enjoy, even if it's just for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so self-care, it's not selfish.
Nope.
It's strategic. It's like you're giving yourself the resources you need to show up as the best, most grounded version of yourself, which I guess in a way is kind of a power move, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. And think about it this way. Think about it this way. If you're running on fumes, if you're emotionally drained, mentally checked out, you're not going to be able to use those tools that we were talking about.
Oh, totally.
Fogging, the broken record, all of that, it takes a certain amount of, like, being present.
Presence and intention.
Yes.
And like you said, if you're running on fumes, you're just going to react. Right.
Exactly.
Instead of actually like thinking about your response.
But when you have been prioritizing your well-being, physically, emotionally, mentally, you're so much more likely to handle things with, a little more grace, a little more resilience. It's like you're coming to the table with all the cards.
Yeah, you're ready.
You're ready for whatever.
Whatever life throws at you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm really seeing the power move thing here with self-care.
It is.
It's like that saying, put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yes.
You can't help anyone else if you're like, gasping for air.
Exactly. Sometimes the best thing you can do when you're in the middle of all of that is to take care of yourself. Because when you feel grounded, when you feel centered, you can be your best self, even when things are a little rocky.
It's so true.
Yeah.
This whole conversation reminds me of that quote, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. We don't always see it right. Like that smile that someone's wearing could be hiding a lot of, internal stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to understand what's going on, why it's happening, how to spot it, how to deal with it.
Yeah, it's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
Right.
It's about like choosing your battles, protecting yourself, your peace,
Yeah.
and finding ways to, keep moving forward in a way that feels good, that feels sustainable.
Well said. And, sometimes that means using those tools that we were talking about.
Right.
Fogging, broken record, whatever you need to get through it.
It's not about being passive.
Right.
It's about being intentional, strategic with your energy.
Yes. And knowing when to engage and when to just,
Tap out.
Yes.
And remember, self-care, it's not all like, bubble baths and face masks.
Although those are great.
Those are great. But it's also about, those things that nourish your mind, your body, your spirit.
Yes.
It's about building resilience.
Yes.
Okay, to our listeners out there, the next time you are dealing with this kind of hidden tension,
The worst.
remember those tools. You got this. You've got fogging, you've got the broken record, you've got self-care. All of that is in your arsenal now. And hey, maybe by understanding this stuff ourselves, we can even help to encourage people to be more open and honest in our own relationships.
That would be amazing.
Right.
A world where we can just say how we feel.
Imagine. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of hidden conflict. It's been real. Until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.